I'm here. We'll have fun.
All right. So I hope everybody had a great holiday. Today, we're going to talk about all or nothing thinking. A lot of people struggle with that, especially clients. It can be hard. Let's see, why is it not? Come on. A lot of people struggle with it, and it can be hard, especially entering a new holiday, kind of getting away from that type of thinking. We kind of just, it's a new year. We kind of want to gung ho and just take on these really, really big challenges and change a lot of things about like our goals. But as we know, the best way to make changes is small changes over time. We're going to end up running into something where it's not going to go our way. Like our kids are going to stay up too late and we're going to be tired and we're going to want to skip our workout, or we're going to have to move our workout. We're going to have, sick kids and maybe we can't do our full workout. So, having the mindset to be able to kind of shift what our plan originally is really important to be successful kind of over time. So a great way to start is kind of thinking about how can we add things instead of always wanting to take away things. So instead of doing something like 75 hard or going paleo or whole 30 once the holidays start, like those are great for people that maybe need it. But over time, we're going to run into times where we're not going to be able to get our workout. We're not going to be able to eat that meal that we planned because we're going to be stuck in traffic. So we're going to have to be able to, shift. So a good way to do that, instead of, saying I'm going to cut out all gluten or I'm going to cut out all dairy, obviously, unless you have a medical reason, or I'm going to fast until, 1 p.m. Instead of doing that, can we do something different? Can we like maybe have a goal to eat breakfast by 10 a.m. instead of, wanting to push it all the way until 1? Can we add protein to each meal? Can we add fiber to each meal? Just thinking about ways that we can add things to our meals, or to our intake, as opposed to um, doing cutting out all of it, right? So like if we add things like more fruits, more vegetables, um, it's going to actually end up most likely leading to less craving. So you're not going to really consume as much sugar, for example, or those extra things that maybe you tend to crave, because you're gonna be more satiated. You're not probably not going to be as focused on it, because the more we focus on things that we can't have, that's just natural for our brain to want it. Just like kids, when they know they can't have something, the more they're going to ask, uh, on and on and on. Can I have this? Or they're going to think about it, because it stinks to have to give up things. It's not in our nature as humans. We're always going to want what we can't have or compare, which is obviously something else we need to work on. Um, but thinking about what we can add instead of taking away can be really helpful for a lot of people. So something like one of my goals, for example, of how can I add, is I tend to get very hyper focused on work or whatever I'm doing, and I tend to not eat as early as I should. So like a goal for me, and instead of saying like I'm going to eat breakfast right when I wake up or something like that, like, that's too hard for me. So I'm going to set a goal to eat breakfast by 10 a.m. and it has to include, it has to be a certain amount of calories, right? So I'm not like, it's not like a snack, right? It's more of a filling, satiated meal. I have to sit down and eat it. So it's thinking about something that I can add instead of, like taking away my morning coffee or something like that. Just an example for you. So another thing, like a lot of people struggle with, is I can't get in my workout, or I can't get in my walk today because I don't know, a meeting went long or something happened, right? So instead of, not doing it at all, which kind of many of us can struggle with, or not taking a walk at all and skipping it completely, can we do a 15-minute or 30-minute workout instead of our hour-long session? Can we work out from home instead of maybe driving all the way to the gym? Can we even just simply like taking a quick walk or a few quick walks? Even sometimes, like if I'm really busy, just like walking in place while you're answering emails. Like it doesn't have to look perfectly laid out. So thinking about ways and getting a little bit creative of how you can still at least do something instead of just completely foregoing the goals that you set for yourself. Let's see. Kind of already talked about breakfast, but instead of skipping breakfast completely or like not having your coffee because you know you need to get a meal in, or you know some people like to not have coffee until they drink water. Like just thinking about ways that we can sorry, there's more people trying to enter. Thinking about ways that we can just change our routine a little bit slowly. Like I said, for me, it's not realistic for me to be able to eat like right, you know, 30 minutes after waking because I'm trying to get the kids off to school or answering morning emails or whatever. So for me, it's more realistic to set a goal to, you know, maybe eat a little bit later. Like I'm still doing it earlier than maybe I was consistently before. So just ways to kind of make small changes instead. So like instead of maybe you do want to fast, maybe you do feel the benefits of fasting and you do want to add that to your daily routine, but instead of fasting in the morning, can we fast in the evening? It's really important for our health to kind of eat with the sun, right? We're supposed to eat, you know, when the sun is up, and then we kind of stop eating when the sun's down, just like being outside mostly when the sun's up, and then it tells our body to go to sleep when the sun's down. So it's kind of the same way with eating. So that's really important to maybe get a bigger breakfast. So instead of having your biggest meal be at dinner, can you try to maybe make your biggest meal breakfast and just make that switch? Or instead of, like I said, not eating until 1 p.m., can you just eat your last meal at, I don't know, 7 p.m. instead and kind of just shift your fasting window if you do feel the benefits of fasting, or just again, making that switch. It's not a huge change, it's just kind of moving it to a different part of your day. And
Sam,
then, yeah,
Sam. So
yeah.
it goes along with this. My husband is like so all or nothing, right? I mean, he is like, I'm so in or I'm so out. And he came to me yesterday and he's like, okay, I'm going to do this carb and I'm going to do this fat. I'm going to do this protein and I'm going to do this calories and I'm going to wake up and do this. I mean, it was like all of a sudden just dumped and all these things. And I'm like, why don't you take a step back and say, all right, for 2 weeks, I'm going to have 40 grams of protein at each meal. And I'm going to see where my calories fall. I mean, he hasn't been tracking for years. And so
It's
just
like
by
stair
like,
step it.
yeah, like, and just make you some time to go on a walk. And so I tried to just kind of like bring him down a notch. And it was funny because he was like, oh, I mean, I didn't even think about, I don't think people know there's a
Another
medium.
way, yeah.
Yeah, instead of just so hardcore out the gate that sets you up for, I'm like, you'll be great until Wednesday. And then
Yeah.
Wednesday's gonna
Yeah.
hit and you haven't done this and this and this, and it gets in your head. So he was like, that's the best idea I've ever heard. And it was just funny to how his brain works versus mine in that direction, but I had to hone him down a little bit. And I think everybody's just kind of in that spot right now. They're wanting like this full
Mhm.
throttle action, and which is great. I think it's great. It's just finding a way what you're listing out to mitigate how to do that. So I had to share that
Yeah.
story because I literally had that conversation with him. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm one of those people. I tend to just like go gung ho, give me something. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm an all or nothing type of person for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
There's
I mean,
nothing
that's
like a
why
good
he done
new
it.
system. You're
What was
like,
that?
I said, there's nothing like implementing a new system. I love creating new systems too, and just that's what I'm doing. But I think there is something to be said for, I don't know what came to mind. Autumn was like, you wouldn't, nobody would be like, I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow and I'm going to do that every day this year. Like that would be so silly. But we do think like, I'm going to overhaul my entire diet. I'm going to overhaul my entire fitness. I'm going to overhaul all of my habits, my sleep. Um, and just like, and then I'm going to repeat that every day for the next year. And I'm going to be a whole new person. It's like, there's no way, like you're just setting yourself up for failure. So it's like, think of the areas you want to improve. I like how Sam talked about. I think also, Sam, I would love to hear, like in your case, some of this is obvious probably, but to us, maybe not to everyone. In your case, like talking about wanting to eat breakfast, right? Being the habit you want to implement, but like, what's the goal? Why do you want to eat breakfast? Because thinking sometimes like for our clients, like maybe they want to lose body fat. So they're like, I'm going to go keto. I'm going to do intermittent fasting. It's like, well, wait a minute. What's the goal? And then what are the options here? Like in your case with your breakfast, yes, you could eat the first thing you wake up, but you know that's not realistic. So like, how are we still accomplishing maybe whatever your goal is? And that in your case, you decided eating by 10 a.m. is going to help satisfy your goal, but is more sustainable. So I don't know. I'd love to hear how you kind of like thought that through for yourself too. Like,
Well, for me, I mean, I have a history of eating disorder. So waiting too long, like I could literally, like I could not eat probably until 5 o'clock at night and I could be fine. Like if I'm hyper focused on something, probably a little bit of ADHD though.
Yeah.
I've never really been diagnosed, but I can just be so hyper focused that I literally, until I finally sit down and just chill, I won't feel those hunger pains. So for me, I know that those eating disorder thoughts are like those food, like just irritability, nitpicking at your body more, hungrier, obviously, because once you finally eat, you're never really
Yeah.
satiated because you waited so dang long to eat. So those things are the reason why I need to, and it's just not healthy to wait so long, to not eat. So to have a very specific goal for me, instead of just saying I'm not going to skip breakfast, having the very specific timeline, because again, I'm a very type A person. So the 10 a.m. is key for me because I have a specific goal and time that I'm going to do it, not just not skip breakfast because, hey, I could eat breakfast at 5 p.m., right?
right.
So that for me, that's what it was. Just because I know it's not healthy, it's not going to make me feel optimal. It's not going to just help long term as far as any goals go. I'm not gonna be able to build as much muscle as I want. I'm not going to, those disordered thoughts are going to be a lot higher. I'm going to be very irritable with my kids and work and not think clearly. So that was my specific reasoning for not wanting to skip breakfast and then having a very specific time for
I love that.
breakfast.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And it's just really nice to hear how your thought process for doing that. Like I love to have clients, like even myself, like 50 grams of protein by 10 a.m. It's kind of the same thing, right? Like it might be hard to get it in at your first meal. So shooting for maybe that's a meal and a snack, but like getting that in, and it's interesting too, because that would be one of the things I would really recommend for a fat loss client. And most fat loss clients are like, what are we eliminating? What are we cutting out? Like, let's just cut out every food group because then I will lose body fat. And it's like, actually, if we think of 5 things to add, you're going to be way more satisfied and it's going to be way easier to be in a calorie deficit, which is what is going to elicit fat loss. I had someone message me this week saying that calorie deficits don't really work for her body type. And she was thinking maybe she should do more HIIT workouts. And I was like, oh, I feel like we talk about things all day long. And I'm like, we clearly need to talk more because I think there will never be enough, discussion on this because it can be so confusing for people. So it's just nice. It's just so refreshing when you hear like it's not easy, but it can be very simple with how you implement new habits in the new year, and you can have a huge impact, but it does require patience, more patience than most people are willing to give.
And really trial and error, because like
Yes.
maybe your goal is 50 grams, or like maybe my goal is a 500 calorie meal, for example, at breakfast time. But maybe I'm not super hungry in the morning, so maybe I have to slowly work up to that. So maybe I need to be okay shifting from 500 to maybe 300 and kind of working my way up from there as that those normal hunger cues kind of come back.
Yeah, because you won't have them. That's for sure. Most women are not hungry in the morning. And if you have
Especially when
coffee,
you have the caffeine, yeah.
if you have coffee, like I
like
Oh, it's
to go till
specific.
3
work out
p.m.
too, or like I walk my girls to school. So like a lot of that can kind of suppress your appetite because you're feeling good. So yeah. And that kind of goes into the next point is like, we have to be okay with shifting. So like, sometimes there's going to be days where you go on vacation or you have company or you go out for an anniversary meal and you might need to go over your calories. So instead of just saying, screw it, I'm not going to track it all that day, I already know I'm going to be over. There's like a few options that you have. Can you just change your calorie goal a little bit for that day? Or like some people like to do it for the whole weekends. Can you have a 10% higher during the weekend and 10% lower as far as your calories go during the week?
I love that plan.
And yeah, can you maybe you kind of wanted to cut out alcohol, that was a goal for you, but you have this big anniversary coming up and you know that you just really want to have a glass of wine with your husband. Can we, and maybe you have a hard time moderating it. So can we have like a boundary around it? So instead of saying I'm not going to have any alcohol at all, can we say I'm going to have, one glass of wine instead of the 3 I would normally have? So like putting boundaries around things, or like that meal out, it's going to be higher, but instead of it being, over, I don't know, whatever, over 1,000 calories, can we again put boundaries around it? Can we skip the appetizer or skip the dessert and kind of still allow yourself to have it, but just like put boundaries around it? So is there a way that we can still hit our goals, but again, just adjusting the plan just a little bit, and it might not be for every day, but just temporarily, so that you can kind of be successful instead of just saying, screw it, I'm not going to do it at all? Because sorry, I hate to say it, and it does suck, but those calories are still going to go towards your weekly average, right?
They're going to count whether you write them down or not. Dang it.
Sam, I give a lot of those like examples to my clients all the time because most of them are like an all or nothing mindset. But what you're describing is balance, right? You hear people talk about it so much. It's literally balance. It's don't have all of the cookies, but also don't have none. Let's have a cookie.
Yeah.
Great. Build the rest of your day around it. Like you can meet your goals and still have a cookie. But it's the extremes that they drive me nuts because it's what you see on social media and everything.
Yeah.
And it's, if you stop to think about it, it's like, why is that what you're seeing on social media? It's like, well, because it gets views, right? It gets attention, not because it's real or it's what works, right? Because
And it might
Casey,
work. It might work temporarily, but it's not, I mean, not for the
right,
long.
but like long term, right? So it's
Well,
like,
and if you think about it, like Autumn with your husband, he probably got like a really nice hit of dopamine when he came up with his plan. Like that feels,
yeah,
I don't know, same thing, like
I'm gonna do it
dopamine depleted
on
in
it.
general, a little ADD. And so I love making plans because it like gives me a hit of dopamine and it feels so good. And it's not as good of a feeling to be like, all right, I'm just gonna add an additional cup of veggies every day this week. But you like that's not exciting, but it can have a huge impact. Where if you're like, I'm getting up at 5, I'm walking 5 miles every morning, and then I'm doing my meditation, and then I'm doing, this special celery smoothie. Like it feels exciting until it's so hard to maintain, and then you don't do it anymore. And so I think for those of us that are like, if that sounds familiar to you, which it probably is for a lot of us, be aware of that as you're planning your habits. Like, am I just seeking that hit of dopamine right now? And is this actually something I could do for 365 days? And it works with my life. And so I think if it's not, then thinking through what Sam said, like, all right, well, I still have the same goals. What is realistic habit wise? Because in 365 days, if I implement small habits, like small tweaks, it is going to give me a huge change over a year's time versus like going 1,000% and then in a month we're back to square one.
Yes, exactly. And as humans, I think we all kind of have that like challenge accepted. Give me a good challenge. And it does provide dopamine, but just doesn't work long term for most of us. I mean, maybe for some, but not for most. So just a few other things. I kind of already mentioned it earlier, but instead of maybe having this big long walk that you take at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, can we do short walks, just 5 to 10 minutes instead of sitting all day? It's really actually great for your digestion too, if you can even plan that around like after your meals. Can you go for a quick, for like a quick 5 to 10 minute walk as opposed to an hour long walk at the end of the day? Because for some, it might not feel realistic. For others, yeah, it could work great. But if you're having a hard time like last year, for example, if you had a hard time getting those steps in, if you have a step goal, and you were just trying to do a long walk or getting like half done in one take, can we just do smaller ones instead? Like, again, just using some strategizing, some trial and error, figure out what's going to work, what's not. And that's kind of going to be most important, is kind of asking yourself, maybe, why do I have to take one long walk? Why, just like the why behind why you're doing things, or why you feel you need to do that too, can be really helpful in helping you to choose maybe something that's going to work better for you, not having to do this perfectly laid out thing that you think is going to just make you reach your goals magically.
Has anyone on the call experimented with just walking around the block like throughout the day? I usually will do, maybe like 2 30-minute walks, but I haven't really tried just like once around the block a few times during the day. Has anyone tried that and noticed a difference, or noticed that it's easier or harder or anything? I feel like, Jess, you've been doing a lot of walking. Are yours usually long ones?
I'm getting ready to do my around the block post lunch walk right now.
I love it. So how long does that take you, Griff?
I found a little loop that I love. It's like a 7 or 8 minute loop. It's 1,000 steps. So however much time I have, or however many steps I want to take, it's either one quickie 1,000 step loop,
I love it.
or I go on like 3 or 5, or sometimes if I have time for 5, I don't need to walk in 5 circles, but whatever.
Yes.
But it's
You might do
nice that
differently.
it's close. I know exactly the distance. I still have a little guy at home. On the weekends, he naps for 2.5 hours. So I will go on like 5 loops. So I'm never that far. Like, he's in my ear. I'm
That's
never that
nice.
far, but I can, like, he's doing his thing, I'm doing mine, which is really quite nice. I love the short little quickie ones post meal specifically. I feel so much better digestion wise. And it's like 1,000 steps here, 1,000 steps there, it adds up.
Adds up a
Something
lot.
is better than nothing. Yeah.
For sure. And every study that we see tells us that more like just getting an intense workout once a day and then being sedentary the rest of the day is not ideal. Where if you had even just like a light workout and then you were active throughout the day, that's going to benefit you so much more. So it's just a nice reminder that you really, and maybe it's like, maybe you have babies that you really can't leave. Maybe you like walk your house 5 times. Like
Done that
maybe you have a
before.
loop
It's
in
really
your
cold
home.
out.
Yeah, like I'm like, maybe sample it, like put on a pedometer and walk whatever an area of your house and try that and see how long it takes you and see how many steps you get in. So then you can just like mentally note it. Like 5 loops is, however many steps. And you could just take that throughout the day. Because I know that like young babies at home life can be so hard, but it's also really overstimulating. So like maybe throwing your headphones on and just doing a little like inside walk could really be the mental and physical reset that you need.
Yeah, with the weather being colder too, like some days you might have negative degrees where you can't be out for maybe longer than 5 minutes. So walking around your house, you might have to, or even like a dance party in the living room with your kids. Like,
Yes.
just, it doesn't have to be perfectly laid out, which it's hard. I know. It's hard for me too, but it can help with long-term sticking to, those goals that you achieve. Like, maybe you did a fat loss phase, you were successful with 75 hard, but then what? Are you
Yeah.
able to maintain it? That's the hard part.
Yeah, I think having some tangible data helps. Like with Griffin, what she said, she knows she can get 1,000 steps in 8 minutes. So it's like, okay, I just have to put on my shoes and do it. Where a lot of times, if you're like, I want to get movement in, and you're like, well, how far would I go? How long do I need to be out? Where would I walk? It's helpful to just have a plan. Then it's just the decision of putting your shoes on. You know what you have time for and what you can accomplish in that time. I think that's really helpful.
And it could be, I mean, also, like, say Griffin doesn't have, 7 minutes this time. Like, she could turn that walk into a faster walk, and even maybe get a little zone 2 in there as well. So again, just shifting our plan is really important.
She could add a vest and, not go as far potentially. Yeah. Yeah.
One thing that I did, because I wanted to be more aware, I wore a Whoop for a while, but then which don't they
They
Doesn't it
track
track
steps.
now?
They do track
Yeah.
steps now.
But I was done with it. I wore it
I
for
wore
like
mine for like a week last week, and then the battery died, and I was like, I don't remember where I put my charger, and I took it off. So I might need to do it again. But now that I'm not wearing one, it's annoying to have to charge anything.
Yeah. So I had stopped wearing my Whoop band before they implemented steps. And so I pulled out like my old, like Generation 1 Apple Watch and wore it for like 3 months just so I could get a pretty good idea of what I would need to walk to hit my step goal. And then I could get rid of it because I personally, now that I've collected the data, I don't like to wear something all the time. So that was nice. And now I know if I take about an hour-long walk, or even if it's 2 half-hour walks, then I will get right within my step goal range, which is my other daily activity. So I feel like that's helpful too, is like, we don't have to be married. Like we can be curious and want some data, but we don't have to be married to those
Absolutely.
devices.
Yes.
And be in more flow state with it and know that like, okay, an hour walk or whatever it is for your goal, can get you that information, but then it's not like, I know people will joke like, if you don't track it, it doesn't count, but it's like, personally, I don't want to wear something all the time
Yes.
and have to like start and stop my workout. And like, I don't thrive in being, I definitely have some like type A tendencies, but I do better when I like can be in flow with certain things and not be like so rigid.
The
I
same thing with
agree.
tracking, right? Especially if you're in
Yeah, that's
maintenance,
what I was
like,
gonna say. It's like
once,
tracking.
yeah, once you're in and you know what that breakfast looks like, or you know that the size and the portions look like it's important to also take breaks from doing,
And just
tracking.
enjoy.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
One
I'm the
thing-
same way, Jess. I look at my steps on my phone, which obviously is not super accurate. It doesn't account, like I'll set my phone down and I'm doing chores and stuff, but
Yeah.
at least gives me like a little bit of a gauge of my kind of norm. And then if I'm really low, I'm like, oh yeah, I should get some movement in. But I'm the same as you. I've worn wearables for a long time. And so I have an idea. I'm same an hour a day. If I'm walking, it's like, I feel amazing. I'm active. That's great. That's not always realistic for me. So I think like doing the little like 15-minute walks or 30, breaking it up can be really helpful. But then you're just making a mental note and you're like, oh, wow, I haven't walked at all this week. No wonder I feel kind of sluggish. So it's like you kind of know what your norm is and you can move back to that. Same with tracking your food. Same with exercise too, like knowing what you can get in 20 minutes. Like 20 minutes doesn't sound like very much, but you can get a pretty good workout in if you superset some things and your intensity is high. Where it's easy to think like, oh, I only have 30 minutes. Like why would I do anything? I'm just going to sit here and relax. Well, if you do that 30-minute workout, like you feel really good after. So I think it's nice to know you can break things up into smaller chunks and still be effective and move towards your goals.
That's all I have. Does anybody have anything else?
I was
No,
gonna add one more thing with kids that I've been doing, especially because we haven't had tons of snow in Utah.
yeah.
And like, let's say I've gotten 30 minutes of a walk in, but I want to go get another 30 minutes. I'll ask my kids, like, they usually don't want to walk, but they will happily rollerblade or ride their bikes. So then they're getting outside. And yeah, it just making it just like a normal family thing that even though it's winter, I feel like my getting outside daily over the last year plus has helped me to be like, well, we don't just have to be outside when it's skiing for winter.
Yeah.
We can get outside every day. And so that's helpful for my kids. Again, it depends on your kids' ages and things like that. But I do feel like it's really helpful to make it like a family invitation to, because then they want to get outside more too.
I will say when Scotty was a baby, she had some of her best naps in the freezing cold winter. I had that like cover, like the clear cover or whatever, and I'd bundle her up and like the cold air with being bundled up, she slept so good. But the toddler age is tough because they want to get out of the stroller and then you have to stop and then they want something. It's like baby can work and then like older kids where they can be on a fun toy of a bike or something. So those in that toddler stage, just we're doing our best, right? I say we collectively, but I'm out of it. So you guys are on your own. Quick plug for the Habits Challenge. those of you that are interested in doing it, we are super excited to coach you. We are going to be doing an accountability and habit challenge in the new year. So prep week starts next week with the new cycle of programming. Are we already on the new cycle? Is that next week, Sam?
We're on week 5. So
Okay, next week's, yes. So week 1 will be the new cycle of programming. I was like, that's very quick, but Christmas break also has me off. So prep week will be next week. Week 1 of the new cycle will be week 1 of the habit challenge, Build the Ultimate You. And we have a group in the app, so that will kick off next week, and most of our correspondence will be in the app, but we will be focusing on a specific habit each week for the 6 weeks that will give you a foundation for whatever you want to do, whether it's building muscle, losing body fat, or just feeling your best in the new year. Those foundational habits are what is going to make it so much more sustainable for you to do that. So we're going to get a lot more into how we do our own habits and how we strategize and what's worked well for us and our clients. And so we'll be tracking those habits for everyone in the challenge. You'll be tracking those habits on the app, and we'll build upon them over the 6 weeks. And we're going to do weekly giveaways. And at the end of the 6 weeks, we are going to be giving away 3 months of one-on-one coaching to someone that does the challenge. So we're super excited. You guys have until Friday to sign up for the challenge. And I think that is all. If you guys have any questions on it, let me know. For those of you that do sign up for the challenge, you get 50% off of a macro consult too, which you can do with the team, that will give you more individualized nutrition goals for you, based on your goals. And I think that's everything. So we hope to have you guys join the challenge. If you're not in it, if you are, you'll get a lot more info kind of as we get rolling through prep week. Obviously, probably have lots of questions. So we'll be in the group answering those and getting excited about starting to implement new habits here as we ease into 2025. Thanks so much, Sam, for sharing your knowledge and ideas and strategies. And if you guys have any more questions, ask them in the group. And I hope you all have an awesome second week of January. It's like first real week of January. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good day.